Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First thing we have on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So, would you please join me in that? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as posted.
I second that.
Approval and second to approve the agenda as posted. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion is adopted. Thank you. Public comment? Do we have anything for public comment?
Chair Kelly, there was no one that had submitted anything to me via email, mail, or personally dropped off.
Thank you. We'll move on then. We're very lucky tonight to have the principal of the St. Elementary School here to give us a brief. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Catherine Burgett from Sago Elementary School, and the start of the school year has certainly been unique and has had its unique challenges as well. And but with that, we also have a lot of celebrations and bright spots as we're going along. We're about halfway through our school year, and it's a great opportunity for us to look back at what we've done so far, as well as to look forward at what else do we still need to do and what changes do we need to make. Before school started, we were really anticipating what skills are our students going to need and where are they going to come in with us for academics and what will we need to do. Once school started, we did our baseline testing and really looked at the results, and we had some pleasant surprises. I'm going to go ahead and change that. One of the areas that we looked at is math testing for English Language Arts, the ELA, which is the area of reading. And that's in grades 3 through 6. And when we looked at their scores from the beginning of last year to the beginning of this year and looked at their growth, overall, the students in 3 through 6 in the area of English Language Arts showed typical growth or above typical growth for that year. So that was exciting for us. When we looked at the area of math, they weren't quite as positive. Oh, let's go back to Stone. Sorry, Tom. They weren't as positive as the area of reading. And we know that's an area of focus for us for this school year. We also know that without direct explicit instruction of mathematics, it's difficult for students to master those mathematics skills. In kindergarten through 3rd grade, they have the Idaho Reading Indicator, which is the IRI. And when we look back to last year with the closing of school for that last quarter, our kindergarten and 1st graders in particular lost some foundational reading skills. And the IRI at the beginning of the school year showed some of those loss of skills. But when we look forward, and now Tom, you can go ahead, where the growth is happening so far this school year. So this shows our 1st graders, and it is the IRI. We look at them every month to see what skills they've mastered and which ones they still need to work on. The first bar shows September. The green shows students that are, based on this measure, are proficient in the area of reading on these skills. The red shows that they are in an intensive area and they need a lot of extra interventions and support. Every month that we've done this, you can see that the green bar is growing and the red bar is shrinking. Right now, we're in the midst of just beginning our January assessments, and so that will be filled in. But you can see in December, we had 57% of our 1st graders at the proficiency level in reading on this indicator, and down to 5% of students that were still intensive. So that's exciting for us to see that we are filling those gaps and putting those pieces in. With a shortened day, learning is pretty intense, and we maximize that as much as we possibly can. We can go on to the next slide. We've had a lot of process and procedural changes this school year. But one thing that's really stood out to me is the flexible thinking that our staff and our students have shown this school year. We've come up with some great ideas because of these changes. So a couple I want to highlight is one, we've created a bookmobile or book cart that the librarian stocks full of books. We wheel into a classroom so students can put their hands on books and get those books, check them out, and then it gets wheeled in at the end of the day. She sanitizes, cleans, and restocks, and it goes to another class the next day. You can try it. Our recess times, we have each class does recess by themselves, and so that looks different again this year. One thing we've done is we have created zones on our playground, and each class, sometimes we have up to 3 classes out there at a time, each class is designated in a zone. And then those zones rotate every day or every couple of days so that students can play on the different types of equipment or areas on the playground. What we have found with that is the students are together during the day, together at recess, together at lunchtime. The sense of community in the classroom is really strong this year, and we've really seen a great sense of community, more than we have in the past, because they're having to really rely on each other and create those relationships. Our music class, our music teacher goes into the classrooms, and but what we found is the numbers of COVID began to rise in our community, that we wanted to make some changes within the music classroom as well. And she wanted to continue teaching the recorders to students. So on days when our PE teacher is not at our school, she utilizes the gym, spreads students way out, and then they're able to still practice and learn the recorder. I have a lot of traditions, and it's hard to get rid of some of the things we've always done. The picture is just a picture, and that's the water bottles that Hay had given us, and it's just kind of a fun, it was a great pick-me-up for the entire staff. But some of the traditions that we've had that we've had to adapt and continue with our Veterans Day. We've always had a Veterans Day assembly where we've invited veterans in and been able to put on different performances for them. So this year we had all of our students write letters of appreciation to veterans and thanking them for their service, and then these were distributed to different veterans. We, in the past, have always done a holiday sing-along just before we leave for winter break. So this year we did it distance learning style via our Google Classroom. And we projected the karaoke words, and the music came through in each classroom. Each classroom teacher muted their microphone so that everybody it wasn't interfering with the music as it was playing. But in the hallways you could hear everybody singing along, and it was a great atmosphere. Usually the last week before we go to our winter break, we have kind of some fun designated days. And it's for staff and for students, where we'll say it's a sock day, and everybody wears some sort of fun socks or a holiday hat. We always have crazy or ugly Christmas sweaters or holiday sweaters. And then we also decided, well, we've got these face coverings, let's decorate them. So we all embellished our face coverings in whatever way we wanted. So that was kind of fun. Okay, one more. Every year we do a penny drive, and often we do a food drive. Mrs. Giard's class decided that this is something we needed to make sure that we did again this year. And they planned and organized the penny drive. It ran for about 2 weeks. 6th graders made and displayed signs talking about what the penny drive was. Students brought in their change from home. Many brought in their own allowance, money, and we started to fill the jars. One more. And Mrs. Giard even stood out in our parking lot during parent pickup with these Christmas sock, and people kind of emptied out their change containers in their cars and filled the sock. One day we made $86 from people driving through as they came through. It was fun too, yeah. Okay, one more. We had planned, our goal was to raise $300. When we were done, we raised over $1,500. And the food bank said that that would provide more than 6,000 meals. Wow. It was really a great, and Mrs. Giard took a check to them our last day of school before break. Yeah, it was really great. We were all overwhelmed with the final amount. We know there's challenges this year. When we look at our academics, how are we catching kids up? How are we filling those gaps that we see in pockets there? How are we continuing to move them forward and making certain that they're finishing the school year strong? And challenging all of our learners, making certain that no matter where they are, that we're challenging and continuing to grow them. Right now, we're in the middle of our winter assessments, and as I said at the beginning, it's a great time for us to reassess where we are and where we're going. So we're doing the MAP testing and the IRI testing again. We'll dive into that data and then make adjustments as we need to. Safety, really looking at how to keep everyone safe, our students and our staff. Look at face coverings. Is everybody wearing them? Are they wearing them appropriately during our school days? Monitoring student health. Our parents have been great and very responsive. If we call and a student's not feeling well, they come immediately. Many have kept their students home just as a precaution to make sure they got the sniffles or they woke up with a cough. And we appreciate that. And then we try to keep areas sanitized throughout the day as well. And we look at the social and emotional well-being, taking care of all of our students and staff and making sure that all of their needs are being met, whatever that may be. Tom, there's one more. So in closing, I just want to say thank you to the board for putting in procedures that you have, the procedures that you have put into place that are helping keeping our students and staff safe. So I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, I had a question.
Yes.
The bookmobile, is there a way that children are able to take those home?
Yes. So those books can be checked out with the library. They can take those. They're recorded. They're given back to the librarian so she can enter in her system. And the kids can check those out for 2 weeks so they can take those books home.
Do they get some kind of credit or some kind of incentive to take books home to the building? Okay.
So it depends on the classroom. Most classrooms have goals set up for the type of reading that they're doing. And they have to read so many books, or if they're taking AR tests, the accelerated reader test, which tests their comprehension on that story, they may have a goal that they have to reach so many points or read so many minutes.
Do you guys do the Silverwood?
Yes.
Sorry.
What? Okay. I noticed on the chart with the first grade,
Yeah.
September through December, yeah. It shows a little growth in number of students. Is that because of students, is your school seeing an increase in students or an increase in students coming in physically who were at home previously?
We've had a few return that were originally homeschooled. Most of our influx of students have been new moving into the area.
Okay.
We started about 16 students per each first grade, and I think we're at 18 and 19, or somewhere around that number.
Uh-huh.
So we've had a little bit of influx. So yes, we have a slight increase there.
Great.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So, can you comment on how effective is the cohort teaching model, compared to your traditional model?
So at most of our grades, most teachers were already teaching all of their subjects throughout the day. The difference with many of the teachers, let's say use first grade for example, is that as students, if we're reading, if we identify that they needed some reading skills, sometimes we would pull students from both classes. They would go to a Title I reading group or a special ed reading group or intervention, and we pull students based on their needs rather than where they came from. Right now, we just need to pull one class and then another class, and we don't mix those students together.
So if you have, a special needs reading group, it all has to be within the same classroom, right?
For the most part, we do have one group, but they maintain 6 feet and separation between them. But yes, mostly it is, and a lot of it is one-on-one with the adult. In some of our grades we had where some of the classes were switching, and one teacher would do primarily math in the past, and one would do English language art. And so this year they aren't able to do that.
So are you able to utilize your computer lab with the distance?
We still have a computer lab teacher. She goes into the classrooms, and because all of our students have devices, she can go in there and perform and do the whatever she has planned in the classroom rather than in the lab.
Yeah.
Kathy, are you getting any pushback on the mask issue from parents?
All of our students are compliant. and wear the mask. We do have some parents that express some concerns about wearing of the mask. But I would say that was more at the beginning of the school year than now. It's the way we do business right now, and our students are really great with it. They do need some reminders. Sometimes they forget not to put it on, or maybe it'll slide down. But for the most part, it hasn't been a big issue for us. Yeah.
How do you handle visitors or parent volunteers that come into the school?
Right now, they really aren't. We have allowed a very small number of volunteers that come in, and they follow a very strict protocol. They don't enter the classrooms. They work with maybe one student. We set a timer for the amount of time they can work with them. They're masked and separated with a plexiglass divider. We don't have visitors. If visitors come into our school, it's after school hours. Like they want to tour the school and they're new. They come after the end of the school day when students are dismissed.
Any other questions from the board? Well,
Lonnie, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, what was your Silverwood?
Oh, are you guys doing the Silverwood reading program?
So Silverwood last year changed their program, and they were doing it a different way, and so we were able to do it last year, and we just got confirmation that we are doing it again this year. So students read for a certain number of hours that they have to report, and then they get a free Silverwood
ticket.
pass.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's a great incentive, it's a great program.
So, quick question. Masks, I mean, how many of your students, I mean, your students are required to wear masks when they're in the hallway, right, or when they're out of their classroom? But the primary students aren't required to wear masks during the school day, right?
No, and with the increase of our cases in our county, a lot of teachers implemented a few changes within their classroom. So when students got up to go meet with the teacher, they put on their face covering. Or if they were just within the classroom, we saw a few times where they were asked to put them on more often than before. We do have a handful of students that choose to wear them all the time.
They choose to wear them.
Mm-hmm.
They're the minority. Most students, when they're at their desk, they choose not to wear them.
Staff wears them all the time.
Staff wears them all the time. But
Yep.
the students, most students, when they're at their desk, they don't wear them.
Most students take them off when they're at their desk.
okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Next we have board items, and it's a distinct pleasure to dissolve this current Board of Trustees and turn it over to our superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. If you're still Chair Kelly, I don't know if you just dissolve the board.
I'm not-
He's got to have the
I'm
gavel.
nothing,
I need to
yeah.
have the gavel.
Don't hit me.
For one time, I've got the gavel. So at this point in our meeting, we will be taking nominations for board chair for the fiscal year. So at this point in time, I'm open for nominations. Chair Kelly.
Thank you. I would like to nominate as a president trustee Joe Lewis.
I'll second that.
Or any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Chair Kelvin.
All right, we have two nominations. The way this works is we would first take the first nomination first and do a roll call vote. So Kelly, if you could take a roll call vote on the nomination of Geraldine for chair.
So a roll call vote with first nominee nominated for Geraldine Lewis. Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Superger.
Nay.
Trustee Decker.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Kelly.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
So with the unanimous vote, there is no need to move on to the second nomination.
Okay. So
Not that-
Geraldine Lewis.
And although it's not unanimous, it is a
Sorry.
carrying. It
Sorry.
is a vote that carries.
It's not unanimous, correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So Geraldine Lewis is elected board chair, and I'm handing the meeting back over to the board chair, Geraldine Lewis.
Okay. Thank you for that nomination. So at this time, I would like to take nominations for the election of vice chair. Okay, trustee Kelly.
Madam President, I would like to nominate Lonnie Williams to be the new vice chair.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations? We'll go with that.
A roll call vote for trustee Williams as vice chair. Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Superger.
Aye.
Trustee Decker.
Aye.
Chair Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Kelly. Thank you.
And then moving along, we will have an appointment of treasurer. We'll need a motion to appoint Lisa Halls as our treasurer.
I make a motion that we appoint Lisa Halls as the treasurer.
Second.
I second that motion.
Moved and seconded. All in, is this roll call or all in favor?
Just
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. We'll have the same thing for appointment of clerk with Kelly Fisher.
I move to appoint Kelly Fisher as the clerk of the court.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 motion carried, Chair.
Yes, motion has carried.
Thank you.
Appointment of authorized agents, we have 3, Tom Albertson, Lisa Halls, and Kelly Fisher. If I could have a motion for that.
Madam President, I move that we appoint Tom Albertson, Lisa Howes, Kelly Fisher as authorized agents for Lake Conway School District.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have an appointment of custodian of records, Kelly Fisher.
I move to appoint Kelly Fisher as the custodian of records.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. At this time, you will note that you received the code of ethics in your packet. Be sure to read that and sign it and leave it with Clerk Kelly Fisher before.
I would like to ask Chair Lewis that you make a motion to approve the code of ethics that was presented to you, and then please return those to me signed. Thank you.
They were in our packet. Do I have a motion to approve the code of ethics as presented?
I move that we approve them as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, aye, by the way. Motion carries on the approval of the code of ethics. Just remember to sign those and turn those in. At this time, we're going to move on to administrative section with the approval of proposal for networking projects. Is Matt Brass presenting, or is?
Matt Brest is not able to make it. He is also streaming another meeting currently.
Okay.
But Superintendent Albertson and I could attempt to answer any questions, and then if they were outside our realm, he was available via phone.
Okay, so we had approved the going out for bid for these, so this is the accepting the bids. On the 4 networking projects, it was in the packet, I'm assuming everybody had a chance to read it. Are there any questions, or should we move to motion? There'll be a chance for questions.
I make a motion that we approve the bids for the 4 networking projects for fiscal year 2021 and 2022 from Ednetics for the 4 bids as presented.
I second the motion.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any questions?
Looks like the bids came in great, and they're under what we
Yep.
actually budgeted, so
Right,
it's already built into the budget, so I don't see any reason to not move forward.
I agree. So I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, motion carries. So we are going to move on to discussion of COVID-19 operations. And before I turn it over to Superintendent Albertson, I want to make a statement. Over the past few months, we've heard from a number of public comments and received many emails about educating students during this pandemic. At no other time that I recall have the opinions, ideas, and the information shared been so diverse and contradictory. Throughout all of this, our one goal of keeping our schools open as safely as possible has been at the forefront. During this time, no one opinion prevails over another. There have been experts and parents weighing in on both sides of the facial covering issue. And since we as a board do not claim to be medical experts, we will continue to lean on the medical community when making these decisions. We'll continue to evaluate our plan based on the health of our students and the new information coming in daily. I believe that this accurately represents our board's position, but if any of you would like to add a comment to this statement, now is the time, if you have anything you want to add.
No, I have nothing to add. I'd like to support what's gone on before, and our superintendent, your staff, the teachers. I think everybody has just done a great job of pulling together, keeping the schools open, and keeping the public informed, and keeping the kids safe.
I'd like to echo that. I think we have a great plan. I think our administration's done an incredible job of preparing and administering our plan. And we have a flexible plan, and we've already made a couple of modifications to it. And our plan is based on first safety and second education. I'm really happy with the direction.
I'd like to
I echo that.
statements as well.
Okay, well, with that, I will turn the conversation over to Superintendent Albertson.
Okay, thank you. I just want to take this time to give you, as I do every meeting, just the update of where we are within the community with COVID, where we are within our school community, and any new things that are coming up that are pertaining to anything COVID. So I really want to start with a review of what's going on in the community and the LPOSD data. So as we start here, every meeting we do look at a number of active cases, and at this point in time, as of today, there are 684 active cases within the county. We can see the chart here. This is the 7-day average per 100,000, and you can see the spike that we had just before the holidays, and that was December 8th, and then we peaked again on December 22nd at a high of 88.7. Please remember that the threshold that Panhandle Health gives us to be in the red zone is 30. Since that peak, we did drop down to a point on January 6th of 43.4, and then we have bounced up and kind of, as of today, are sitting at 59.7. So again, we're watching it closely, and just wanted to keep you informed of this information. The percent positivity, that is the percent of people who are getting tested in our community who are testing positive. And again, this is always a little bit behind. There's a little bit of lag here, but it is at 12.3%. And that was as of, I think, January, lost it, but I think it was January 2nd. And so we're a little bit behind there. Keep in mind that that is 12.3% of everybody that goes and gets tested. That may be if you have a surgical procedure you're going to get. So again, The threshold is at 20%, but Panhandle Health does share with me that they feel that if you were to separate out only the people who are having symptoms to get that percentage would be higher. So that's kind of what's going on in the community. As of today, this is a little bit for you. We currently have 11 active cases. And again, those are cases that are going off and coming on. And so our nursing staff is looking at that closely. We've had to date that we have reported 117 COVID cases within our school from the beginning of the school year until now. So we're watching it closely, but this is where we are as of today is at 11. We also watch the hospitalization in our current hospital, and I believe there were 5 individuals hospitalized, 2 in intensive care, 3 in the hospital. So those are some other metrics that we're looking at. So any questions from the board on the current data that we have?
It seems like the bigger spikes that we saw before leaving for Christmas break haven't come, so that's encouraging.
Right. Is it coming, or is it?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't. We just don't know. And that's, like I said, is that I will keep you informed, and we will continue to monitor that closely.
Good.
So, yes.
So, excuse me.
Yes,
May I speak?
yes, trustee.
I'd just like to ask, this is really for the public,
Yeah.
but do you have any idea when it would be that the teachers and staff would have their first shot?
Yeah, I'll get to that in just a
Oh,
second.
I'm
I've
sorry.
got a slide on the vaccination update here,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm
Before we get to that, there is a new recommendation that came out that is up for discussion today, and I will pull that up for you. I think you have a copy of it.
Yeah.
And it's really a guideline, and from my conversation, the head of the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare in Boise, along with all of the epidemiologists from all the health districts, have gotten together to discuss this, where that they took this to the governor's office for the governor to put this out. It is on the State Board of Education's website currently, and what this is asking is, in K-12 instruction areas where there is close contact between a person who has tested positive for or diagnosed with COVID-19 and students or staff, and both the case and the contact were wearing masks, then the person who tested positive obviously is going to have to do the recommendation of isolation time, but the contact may attend in-person classes but must monitor themselves closely for COVID-19 symptoms during the 2 weeks after exposure. And I've asked for clarification. I view this as a tool for our nursing staff who does contact tracing. I'll leave this for your discussion. I was told this is for in-class instruction area only, not activities, not athletics, not even PE classes. I don't know about other acting. I mean, if you were sitting just in a academic instructional area and both people were masked, then the person then would not need to quarantine if they were deemed a close contact. And that means if they were within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And that is up for consideration for you to the board if you would like to add that to our plan. So I will open that up for Chair Lewis for
Yep.
discussion.
Go ahead.
I feel like this would have a big impact on some of the situations that we have dealt with previously. Kids getting quarantined because they were in a class with somebody that tested positive. So, and I know that that's been a point of contention with some families when they find out their kiddo needs to go home for 2 weeks because they sat in the same classroom as somebody that tested positive. Now, I also realize that unless it's an elementary class, the likelihood of both students being masked pretty slim. But at the middle school, high school level, could we then rely on this if we chose to, that, hey, maybe we don't need to quarantine youngsters for 2 weeks just because they were in the same class? And kind of another side to that, is it not true that we have, of our quarantined students, and I know this was the case at one point, of our quarantined students, we have not had a positive case of a quarantined student from close contact at the school?
Yeah, there may be one or two that were inconclusive.
Okay.
That could have been.
Could have been.
But not, it's not real prevalent.
Right, we haven't had
From
some blow-up
within the
cases.
classroom.
Right.
Now, we do have some cases that's interacting from student to student, but it was not in the classroom.
Not in the
It
classroom.
was activities that were outside of school settings.
Right.
So,
So, hold on one second.
I was just going to say, in my opinion, the risk is very low, and I support this. I support it. And I think it just makes things.
So this is a further evolution of a policy we've already modified. Right? We
Correct.
started out at 10 days,
Yeah.
then we went to 7, and now
Correct.
essentially we're going to go to 0 with monitoring, right?
In specific cases, yeah.
If they have
Mask to
if
mask.
you can prove. My Chair Lewis, I don't know, I always, since, just like you said, we're not medical professionals, so we lean heavily on our healthcare providers in the community to give us this guidance. And I would say at the local and state level, if this has been determined that, hey, this is further evolution of this, and we think that this is the right protocol, is that, should we then go with that?
Yeah, and then I have a question for Superintendent Albertson.
So, we have no evidence of student-to-student transmission, or maybe a couple of possibles, but the very minimum
Nothing.
student-to-student or student-to-staff transmission.
In the classroom.
Within the schools, yes. So that's a real positive thing. We've already changed this policy twice, and it seems to be working. And additional flexibility, I think, is warranted. I'd also like to point out that according to the University of Washington School of Medicine, and I'm getting this information from my daughter, the biggest problem in managing this pandemic in Idaho is we're not doing enough testing. We're only doing a fraction of the amount of testing we need to do. We're only testing those who are the highest risk or are symptomatic. And according to the University of Washington School of Medicine, we're missing between 2 and 3 times the cases. And most of these cases are young people who are asymptomatic. They don't have symptoms, but they are infected and they are contagious, and they could be spreading this disease. So I'd just like to point that out.
But how would you ever know that?
Are you making a case
That's,
for or against this new?
I'm kind of on the fence about this
Or
new.
consideration?
Yeah.
Trustee Hurley, do you have any thoughts on it?
I saw a very similar document from the CDC. And I think that's where our state got this and ran with this, from the CDC. And
My
so
question-
It's not just state,
Oh,
I think
right,
it's
it's
nationwide
broader.
now.
It's a broader
Although-
conversation.
Although we're one of the few states, I think, that have kids in school. And, I mean, Washington is starting to build them back in. But there's all. As a grandparent of one of those students that was unhappily quarantined, I'll tell you,
It's not fun.
it's not fun.
One second, can I ask a quick question? Have you heard from our school nursing staff any feeling about this? Have they weighed in, or is it?
This came about literally
Just too
last
recent.
Friday.
Yeah.
My intent of bringing this to you as a board is not to change any of our operational policies. So I looked at this as a tool for our contact tracers, which is our nursing staff and administrators, to say, if it happened to be in a scenario where both were masked, then maybe we don't need to quarantine as much. This is not meant to say that we are
That we need to change the
our
policy.
operation protocol or what we're doing in our classrooms now, what we're doing in our elementary classrooms. As it was brought up, this may not pertain to an elementary classroom, and we may still have to quarantine some people. This is not
Right.
meant to change our position in our operations. I look at this as just a tool that could be used by our contact tracers in the circumstance, and I think it was brought up, it probably would be more prevalent in a secondary school for it to be face-to-face or mask-to-mask than say in another setting. So,
Yeah.
I know just an anecdotal interaction I have with a high school teacher. There was frustration that, yeah, I had a full class, and then one by one, they got removed from class, or didn't have very many kids in class. Next period, full. But those kiddos had to stay home for 2 weeks, nothing. And it's an abundance of caution. Like, thankfully, nothing happened, and there were no more cases.
Yeah.
But, I'm trying to balance the risk versus reward. What's the risk of staying home for 2 weeks? Well, in a lot of cases, you're going to fall behind 2 weeks. Maybe not 2 weeks, but you're going to fall behind. And especially at the secondary level, those are pretty formidable time period. That can be very detrimental. So if the option is there to lean on a policy like this, and just because somebody was close but masked up, can we potentially keep somebody on track that could possibly fall behind?
So I think Gary alluded to the kind of transition we've had, and right now we're at 7 days. I'm comfortable leaving the policy as it's written and allowing this to be used as just like Superintendent Albertson referenced, a tool. If it became apparent further into this semester that, hey, we should be making some changes, then we could. But right now, if we leave the policy as it stands, it's been working, and I don't know. What's the opinion?
So who's going to make these decisions? Is our healthcare staff going to make these decisions? Is it going to be up to the building principal?
So the way it works now is when we are notified of a positive case, our nursing staff is the first point of contact. And I shouldn't say that. A parent may contact the building principal first or the nursing staff. The principal will contact the nurses, and that's when we will start calling. Our nursing staff will call parents, and we'll be getting the full who have you been around, when did you start showing symptoms, okay, let's pull the class roster, where do you sit, what's the seating chart, who are you within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. So that is the protocol for when we start to look at who would need to quarantine. One that has been kind of tough, to be honest with you, is yeah, I sat next to them during this class, but, and this is at the secondary level, I came into the next period and sat in that same desk, so I have to go out too. We are being very, we're taking this very seriously. But what this would do then would say, yes, you were, but everybody had mask to mask. You need to monitor your symptoms, and we then would maybe not have as many go out. And so really, that's how that would fit in. This is how this would fit into, I look at it as the tools that our contact tracers would use as they're making these phone protocols, and as they're talking to the principals, and as they're talking to the teachers, and they're looking at the dynamics of the classroom and what the settings like.
I'd like to say I support this, as a tool, in addition to our existing policy, this qualitative tool, that our healthcare providers can use, to screen students for quarantine. It's not a rule, it's a tool.
I would agree.
I think that we need to, just putting this out there, we need to understand that next week, there's gonna be somebody that gets a positive test in the high school, and somebody that has to get quarantined, their parent is gonna go, why are you quarantining my kid? I see this document that says my kid doesn't have to be quarantined because they were wearing a mask, and
That's not how we apply the document, and it's not actually our school policy.
well, but I think if we're going to say we're going to use this as a tool, then we are acknowledging that this is,
May have some application.
may have some application, and if it's coming from our healthcare community, it's different. I don't think it's our position to pick and choose which.
That's exactly right. That's why he's saying leave it as a tool for our nursing staff who are doing the contact tracing to make that.
They're gonna lean on this document. is what
They're
you're
gonna use it as a, hey, here's a case where this actually fits.
saying. I got you.
Here's a situation where it doesn't.
Was everybody masked that sat around
Sat.
this person?
All right.
Yes, they were.
All right.
Was there any time where they were not? And if there was a time where they were not, or the student wasn't following protocol, then they're gonna have to quarantine.
Right.
I mean, it's not that we are taking things less serious. I look at it as just a tool to apply if it fits.
Okay.
We're not gonna be asking our teachers to be doing different protocols than what they're doing right now at all levels.
I just wanted to be clear on what the stance was.
Or do we need a motion to approve this?
I don't
Consent?
hear that we are changing the policy, so I don't,
We ought to have a motion that we're amending our policy by adding this tool.
we can do that, or
I
it can
think
be.
I think I would appreciate that. I think it would be good then that the board has approved for us to use this tool.
Well, it would show the nursing staff that we support their decision.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So I will hear a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend our existing policy for quarantines by adding this tool as written. Do I need to read the whole thing? The K-12 school guidance quarantine when masks are worn.
Okay.
I second the motion.
It's moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Any opposed? I didn't. I heard
Okay.
all ayes.
Um,
So, go ahead. You have a
Yeah.
couple more bullet
I
points.
do want to talk about the vaccination update, and just prior to our meeting, there was a press release that was put out by Governor Little, and basically, K-12 employees are in category 1B. Very, very fortunate that some of our employees were able to, because of the availability just within our small community, were able to start early last week in getting their first vaccination. But officially, the governor's release, and I'm not going to read the whole order here, but there's one part that says, fourthly, Governor Little shared his decision that he's going to be starting the rollout of 1Bs January 13th through the 31st, so that would be officially next week. Then, I know we have over 450 employees who are wanting the vaccine. So the good news here is that we are in, some have already had the opportunity to receive their first vaccine, and others, it's on the horizon. And I do not have the details, but I know our community is working really hard. We've had communication from not just Panhandle Health, but also Bonner General Health. So Bonner General Health will be communicating that they will be having some type of vaccination clinic as well as Panhandle Health, so that would give
Yeah.
more, not just for K-12, but for the community. So we're anxiously anticipating more information to details, and we will be getting that out to our employees as soon as we can. I would like to give accolades to Jen Capadai, who is our senior HR employee, who has taken on this communication to our staff about the vaccinations, and she's doing a great job. And we'll get that out there and
Good.
get everybody who wants a vaccination have that opportunity. So it's a big undertaking. You know, I think we hear how big rolling this out is, and I think in a smaller sense, it's large in our community too. And I want to thank the health professionals that are organizing these clinics and providing this. So
Yeah.
we will be communicating to our staff more this week, but as it looks now, that it may be that the next clinic opportunity will be starting next week.
So, question.
Great.
Is it possible to have a clinic at one of our facilities? You know,
No, well, I have offered anything we need to do to help, we will always help. But this vaccine is a specialty vaccine. It needs to be cared for carefully, shelf life, temperature. It's different than when we give our employees the flu vaccine. Our school nurses go around to the schools and administer that. This is not the time for us, number one, to have the capacity or how we need to take care of that. So we really need to partner with our health community in Panhandle Health, Modern General Health, Nation Health, however this spans out in our community. So they have the expertise and the training of how to handle this. So with that sentence, Gary, I would say that's probably what's most important. So it's on we have some employees who have already received it, and we're on the horizon to be getting more.
Yes.
Chair Lewis.
Chair Williams. Trustee Williams.
Mr. Alvinson, I was asked a question by a teacher. If we get vaccinated, the teachers, if a teacher gets vaccinated and gets their, both doses and through the proper timeline, will face coverings for that person be lifted? The requirement there.
What I've been told, and again, I think this board has been very diligent in following Panhandle Health and CDC guidelines, and my recommendation that we would continue to follow what their guidance would be on that, which we have not received.
Yeah, I haven't heard
What I
anything.
do know is, depending upon each, and this was told to me from the head epidemiologist from Panhandle Health and a doctor from Panhandle Health, is that you are not fully protected until anywhere from 10 days to a month after your second vaccination. And the goal is to get to 65% herd immunity.
Yeah.
So that means taking the people who have contracted COVID plus the people who have been vaccinated, the goal would be to get to 65%. So I understand your question. I don't have an answer. And I haven't received any guidance from Panhandle Health on that too.
That's a good question.
Is on the herd immunity, would you take like the sample of the school? Like you don't know.
I think when
Herd immunity is counted as the whole community because of the interactions within households.
and
But
I
it's
think
not just-
Panhandle Health is probably talking about all 5
The
northern
whole
counties.
county.
Probably.
All 5 northern counties.
I
That's
assume
the
that.
cross section.
Yeah. So, you know,
Yeah.
there are clinics, you know, and that's why for them, the importance of getting the vaccination out to the people who want the vaccination as quick as we can.
Absolutely.
So,
So you have one more?
Yeah, the only other thing is that I did work with Chair Kelly, IHSA activities. The new guidelines are being followed, and what it did is it adjusted. We just had to send to the state our assurance that we will follow these guidelines, and what it did is instead of having limiting it to 10 people and it limited to 2 people per player, so that, and they limited the number of players to 13. So really at any one time in a gym, you could have 26 from one team fans, 26 from the other team, but they needed to be anywhere from 6 feet to 12 feet apart. The 2 could sit by each other and spaced out. So that has been adopted, and the governor approved that, and yeah. And so that was an adjustment that the governor made to the stage 2 as far as fans coming into activities. So, and things like separate exit from an entrance, and there's a lot of protocols that we're following, and it's all, it will all work with the cooperation of the fans.
Yes.
Period.
So that applies only to fans, right, not to staff, you know, coaches, assistant coaches, referees, other people that are in the...
There is a list of how many you can have of essential workers you need to run essential workers. So this would be outside, scorekeeper, announcer, et cetera.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Albertson. And can I hear a motion for approval of consent agenda?
I make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We now have approval of our board meeting locations and dates for 2021, and you all have that in your packet. Obviously, it's highlighted that during stage 2, the board meetings are held here. When that lifts, we'd be back at the Conroy Event Center. Is there any other things to draw attention to in this?
Just if the board wanted to discuss the time of 5 p.m. and then historically, we've held our board meetings on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of each month, so you could discuss that if you'd like as well. Other than that, it's how it's been over consecutive years, for many years, as long as I've been clerk as well. The same noting that the second meeting in December is always canceled because that's around holidays and over winter break.
And I would just make 2 adjustments to the calendar. December is not accurately posted there. Those years are,
Oh, yes, I see it, sorry.
but other than that obvious little
I will make
thing,
that clerical change, yes.
before we post it everywhere, we want to put it in the right year.
Thank you.
But other than that, I don't see anything. Is there any discussion about the time our meetings begin?
Well, I would prefer 6 o'clock, at least in the summertime.
I would say 5 o'clock works pretty well. I would say it affects the number of people that will come if they want to attend, which is a very long. That was the reason to have it at 6, was that if parents wanted to come after work to attend our meetings, it would give them enough time. Really, the problem with 6 is it's right after dinner hour. When people, I mean, 6 o'clock, it's too early to eat at 5, and it's awful late to eat when the meeting's over at 7:30 or so. So I would recommend we keep it at 5.
I preferred at 5, but I'll listen for other
I agree with Trustee Kelly. You know, we've all been on this board long enough to have a sample size of 6 o'clock and a sample size of 5 o'clock. There hasn't been much difference with the exception of, you know, public comment during COVID operations, obviously, that has drawn more people, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's had a large impact, to be honest with you. So I'm in favor of keeping it at 5.
I definitely prefer 5, especially during the winter time for my travels back home.
Yeah.
that side of the lake can get very nasty.
Yep. Okay, well, by general consensus, we'll leave it at 5, although it'll be in our minutes that you have presented a different idea. Trustee Superger. Is there a motion to approve the schedule as amended?
I'll make a motion that we approve the calendar as presented in the time and place, et cetera, for the following year.
Second.
With the exception of the 2 amended December dates.
Yes.
Moved and seconded as amended. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We also have the posting locations presented by Clerk Kelly Fisher as the LPOSD Administrative Office and the Ponderay Event Center. Those have been our posting locations for long.
Forever, those
Forever.
2. However, there are 2 that are absent from here that have been, and that would be the courthouse and City Hall. And I know we had discussed, definitely during COVID in the spring when we went to lockdown. That's not what code says specifically. So Idaho Code 74204 states that the posting of such notices and agendas must be in a prominent place at the principal office of the public agency, or if no such office exists, at the building where the meeting is to be held, and also must be posted electronically. I ran into a problem, obviously, with the courthouse and City Hall during snow closures. It's very hard for me to post down there. I have ran this situation over with Idaho School Boards Association, and they strongly recommended that those would be only courtesy postings, and that's what I would ask the board tonight. I would highly recommend posting, obviously, at our principal office here at the district office, but in addition to that, the Ponderay Event Center. Those are just my recommendations. You could keep it how it is currently and has been, including the City Hall and courthouse, or as my recommendation. But I turn that back over to you, Chair Lewis, for board discussion.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, we can still, when it's possible, do a courtesy posting at City Hall and the courthouse, but it is not written in as mandated, so that when it is difficult or not, you're not able to.
I would keep, and Superintendent Albertson and I discussed this as well, I would ask that it be consistent, that
Okay.
I post
Just post it
at the
these 2
district
and
office,
electronic.
the event center, and of course electronically.
I got you. I'm okay with that. I think if there was going to be pushback on this, you would have heard, because we've been doing it this way.
In addition to the courthouse and City Hall.
Even during COVID, you've been posting everywhere.
Correct.
Oh,
Even on the outside the door when these businesses
Yeah.
are closed and locked,
right.
right onto the outside of the door. So it's,
Well, why don't we,
Chair Lewis, I think that we should stick to the code, which says we gotta post it here.
It
We're
needs
doing,
to.
we're going beyond that by posting at the event center. Let's have that be our 2 main, that be our practice. And
Yeah.
I doubt very much that there is a negative impact by not posting at the courthouse and City Hall.
Trustee.
exactly what
Echoing
Ron
those
said,
thoughts.
yes, I echo those. Smart.
So can I have a motion to approve these 2 posting locations as well as electronically?
I so move that we continue to post at the Ponderay Event Center, the district office, with alternative optional postings at the courthouse and the City Hall.
I think we're making,
Yeah, we're dropping those.
I think we are not going to do optional postings in an effort to be consistent so that the public knows exactly what to expect, going off of Clerk Fisher's recommendation that we would only post consistently 2 locations and electronic. Is there,
I amend my motion. I move that we continue to post at the event center and the district office and electronically.
I second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Are we understanding it? I think we do. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. At this time, we are down to announcements. Kathy, forget any extra announcements from your school?
No extra announcements.
Well, thank you for your presentation earlier.
Thank
That's
you.
great. Superintendent Albertson.
You know, it seems like most of my job is being consumed by COVID on these days, so I've talked a lot about that. But I would like to take just the opportunity that thanking every employee of Lake Monterey School District in their efforts to keep our schools open. When I start thinking about, we're going to have some learning gaps next year that we'll be looking at, but by having our kids in a consistent 5 days a week, though it may be shortened, I really feel strongly that we are going to be in a much better position than many schools in the country, neighboring states, even other communities, in the sense of the consistency and the guidance that you as a board have given. So I want to say thank you, and thank you to all the employees for their dedication and work in keeping that going, because it is different. It is different, and there are challenges, and we do recognize that, but the importance for our kids is there. So, you know, that would be my big announcement right now. I mean, I know we're missing out on a lot of the whole child, a lot of activities, and not doing as many field trips, and we're not having that full experience to report out to you, but we're in school.
So I appreciate, before we go, I want to take a moment to thank our past chairman, Carrie Kelly. I don't know that ever a chairman has sat there and said, okay, first you had to deal with hiring a new superintendent, then right away a critical election and the ensuing issues following that, and then right smack dab on the heels COVID, and you have united us as a board and led us very solidly. And I speak, well, I think I speak for everybody. We really value the...
Let me just say, it's been a pleasure working with the 4 of you, and our superintendent and Kelly, and everybody has been doing this. And I think a little bit it's time to turn over the reins to others. It's been a nice experience. I'll still be here. But I did have another announcement. I'm a year older today.
Oh, how did we miss that? This was on your birthday.
I'm not proud of it either.
I'm honored that you're celebrating with us.
That's another reason.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Any other, yeah, I suppose with that resounding goodbye, thank you.